The moment shattered the quiet rhythm of the waves like a dropped glass in a silent room. Sunlight flashed, the wind paused, and my breath forgot its own name. I had come to the beach to disappear into the horizon, to rinse the dust of deadlines and self-doubt from my skin, but instead I stood frozen, caught between shock and shame, realizing that some encounters arrive uninvited and leave you changed before you understand why. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet courage it takes to grow, please take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel The Kindness Chronicles. Your support keeps stories like this alive, and your belief makes all the difference. I worked for her for 3 years, long enough to know her reputation and fear her silence. She was efficient, precise, and distant in the way mountains are distant, impressive but unapproachable. In the office, she was structure itself, a careful economy of words and an unyielding standard that made people stand straighter. I admired her competence, resented her perfection, and carried a private anxiety that one wrong step would send me tumbling out of her good graces. So when the company retreat scheduled a beach day, I planned to keep my distance, to blend into the sea of colleagues and let the sun bleach my thoughts clean. The beach, however, has a way of stripping people down to truths they hide behind desks and titles. The tide rolled in with patient insistence, and the air smelled of salt and possibility. Laughter scattered like shells along the shore. I walked alone at first, shoes in hand, rehearsing nothing in particular, until the path curved and delivered me to that sudden, human moment. It wasn't desire that struck me, it was the shock of seeing someone powerful rendered ordinary by the elements. My eyes betrayed me before my mind could intervene, and in that split second of panic, she noticed. What followed was not the catastrophe I imagined. No public reprimand, no icy stare meant to remind me of my place. Instead, there was an unmistakable awareness that passed between us, an understanding that vulnerability had entered the room and refused to leave. I turned away too quickly, heat rushing to my face, ashamed not of what I saw but of how unprepared I was to see her as a person beyond the title. The rest of the day I carried that awareness like a weight, convinced that my career had just stepped onto a fault line. Work resumed, but something subtle shifted. The office felt smaller, the hallways more intimate. I found myself scrutinizing my own reactions, the way I shrank from eye contact, the way I mistook professionalism for distance. I realized how often I had hidden behind my role, too, using humility as armor and self-doubt as a shield. The challenge was no longer about what I had seen, it was about what I was willing to become after seeing it. In the days that followed, she seemed different, not softer, but more present. Meetings became conversations. Expectations remained high, but guidance replaced silence. I struggled with the unfamiliar terrain, second-guessing every gesture, worried that kindness might be a trap. Yet gradually, I learned to trust the consistency of her actions. She acknowledged effort. She corrected mistakes without cruelty. The mountain did not crumble, it revealed paths. The beach encounter forced me to confront my own narrow definitions of respect. I had equated authority with distance, competence with coldness. Seeing her in a human moment dismantled that equation. It also forced me to examine the ways I judged myself, believing that worth was something granted from above rather than built within. I began to speak up in meetings, to own my ideas without apology. The fear that once knotted my stomach loosened into a steady resolve. Time passed, and with it came a project that tested us both. Deadlines tightened, resources thinned, and pressure mounted like a storm. I stumbled, made a costly error, and waited for the fallout. Instead, I received support paired with accountability, a lesson in leadership that changed how I measured success. I worked harder not out of fear, but out of respect, discovering that the strongest motivation is not terror of failure but belief in growth. The beach returned to me in quiet moments, not as embarrassment but as a reminder that life insists on complexity. People are not their titles, and moments are not their labels. What embarrassed me had, in fact, freed me, loosening the rigid lines I drew between myself and others. It taught me that dignity survives vulnerability, and that compassion can coexist with excellence. Near the end of that year, standing at the same shoreline on my own time, I felt a gratitude I couldn't name before. The waves still rolled in, patient and forgiving. I understood then that the story was never about what I saw, it was about what I learned to see afterward. The courage to look away when needed, and the courage to look closer when it mattered. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can change the course of a life and that second chances often arrive disguised as discomfort, please take a moment to engage with this video. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help these stories reach the people who need them most. Special request: before you go, please comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Your words matter, and they might be the kindness someone else needs today.